about the conscious versus the unconscious mind. So that is really the theme of my talk today, which is your mind plays tricks, and that for me is one of the great joys about behavioural science, is that it tries to uncover how you and I make decisions. Do we really go from A to E via B, C and D, or do we make mental shortcuts? And the message is, we make mental shortcuts. And what are those shortcuts called? They're called biases. So today, from an investment point of view, I want to talk about some of the investment biases that affect you and affect your clients. And one of the reasons why I think is we have this behavioural bias. We have the optimism bias. It's very hard for us to conceive that things could get much, much worse. And there may be plenty of good hardwired evolutionary reasons why we have an optimism bias, but it can be very dangerous for us as investors. Now, if I were to give you a conclusion up front today about what I've learned about behavioural science, it's this. You and I will find it very difficult to get rid of our mental biases, our mental shortcuts. But just being aware we have them makes them less dangerous. Biases, or mental shortcuts that come from the elephant. And as an investor, we must be aware we're all riding an elephant with lots of biases, however smart we think we are sitting up top. Oh, just my question, has anybody read this book, Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman? Just by a show of hands, I can see a hand go up. Kahneman is really the father of modern behavioural finance. It's a great book. And when I first became interested in behavioural finance was in about 2002, 2003. Why? Because I had lots of economics friends, and they were really cross. They were annoyed. Why? Because this man, Daniel Kahneman, had been given the Nobel Prize for Economics, and he wasn't an economist. And I got interested in what he was doing, and he was a psychologist. And again, his basic thinking, it's a bit like the elephant and the rider. He talks about system 1 and system 2. Your system 1 way of thinking, which is where your biases come from, is fast, intuitive, reactive, quick, emotional. We've heard that word again this morning, we're going to hear it again later. Fight or flight. System 1 thinking. It's hardwired in you. There's 6 million years worth of evolution that says, I need to make a quick decision. And then we have a more modern brain that allows us to have what Kahneman calls the system 2 way of thinking, which is this rational, evidence-based, analytical type of thinking, much more logical. And I put to you that most of us as investors think we're using our system 2 brain, and indeed maybe we are, and that can be a very good thing. But you can never turn system 1 off. It's hardwired. And that is the point. When you're making a big decision, am I using system 1 or system 2? Am I using them in a good sort of balance? Because balance is what this is about. What I am saying is that in modern day places like financial markets, we need to make sure we are at least trying to apply system 2 without letting emotions cloud it. I want you to think what you would be doing if you were in a big crowd, walking along and you see a sign that says, beware of big pickpockets. Ask yourself, what do most people do? And I have to say, what do most men do when they see that sign? I stand by these signs, I promise you, and I watch people walk along, and they walk along like this, they go, dun, 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 dun. They see the sign and they go, well, they might as well do that, because if you think about it, where would you stand if you were a pickpocket? Near the sign, because people give away where their wallets are. And again, it's a trivial example, but it's a serious example, because if we were using our system 2 way of thinking, if we were the rider on top of the elephant in control of our thoughts, we would say, I must not tap my wallet anywhere near this sign. But guess what? The elephant just wants to tap its wallet. And again, this is a deadly serious subject, but there's lots of fun examples like this that show you how your mind doesn't work very well. We are hardwired. Psychologists say we have about 150 different biases. We'll talk about 2 or 3 today, but there's an appendix with them all listed in there. The point is we have social biases, how we behave amongst other people. We have cognitive biases, how we make decisions. We have memory biases. We differentiate between memory and experience. and so on and so forth. Lots of different ways of analysing how we make mental shortcuts. But that is all a bias is, a mental shortcut, a way of getting quickly to a decision. There's a list of biases, you won't be able to read them, but I want to give you 4 reasons why we have biases, just very quickly, because what's the purpose of them? Well, we have too much information. So we have to find a way of quickly getting to some sort of answer. So we filter stuff. We sometimes don't understand stuff, so we have to create stories and patterns. We often need to act fast. I mentioned fight or flight earlier. So we need to jump to quick conclusions. And finally, in terms of memory, we're given so much stuff into our heads, we have to filter out lots of stuff and remember certain things. And those are 4 good reasons why we have biases. Because if we didn't have them, literally our brains would explode with the amount of information that's in there. Let's talk about one bias that we see a lot in markets. And certainly in my 30 years, I've seen a number of them. This idea of the herd instinct. It's called the bandwagon effect, to give its technical term. The idea, I watch what other people are doing, I like what they're doing, I think, they know something I don't know, I better jump on their bandwagon. I better join the herd. And again, in evolutionary terms, it makes great sense. Safety in numbers. But in financial markets, it can be desperately, desperately dangerous. A second bias I want to talk about is something called confirmation bias. This is the idea that, again, we have loads of information in our heads, we have to filter out some stuff. What do most human beings do? We tend to filter out stuff that doesn't agree with us. In other words, if we have an idea about a stock or a market, we tend to find reasons to support that idea. We're not very good at going around looking for reasons why we could be wrong. And the same applies to business ideas. If you have a business idea, you tend to find reasons. For example, if you want to go to your boss and give them an idea for something you should do in business, how many people will go up to their boss and say, look, I've got this really good idea, let me tell you why it could go wrong? It just doesn't happen. And our human mind does that the whole time. We filter out the stuff that doesn't agree with us. And also, we often don't associate with people who disagree with us. So you don't just see it in investment, you see it in politics. It's a really sad thing to see in politics. People refuse to associate the fact that the opposition could have any good ideas. Confirmation bias. There may be very good evolutionary reasons for having it. It's very dangerous in investment. It's very dangerous in business. Why? Because we're never challenging where we could be wrong. We're trying to find reasons why we're right. And those 2 things are very different. I've already sunk some cost in it, but it's such a good idea, I'll put more in. I bought a stock, it may have halved, I'll put some more money into it. I've invested in people in this business, it hasn't worked, I'll put some more money in. And that's a totally normal, natural human reaction. And it might be exactly the right thing to do, by the way. But often, and I've seen many times where people have just refused to change their mind about a business or a stock, and they just pull out good money after bad because of the sunk cost fallacy. Watch out for it, it's a dangerous bias. Again, I love these examples from the real world, ladies and gentlemen, because it reminds me that behavioural science is not some social science in a textbook written to be read, once every 5 years. This is about the real world that surrounds you and I. There are examples everywhere, like the pickpocket sign, of how the human mind behaves. The next bias is all about the human brain. I love this one because it reminds me that however rational I think I am, as the rider on the elephant, my elephant is way more powerful than me. This is a concept called relativity. So what can we do about it? I've got about 5 minutes left. Let me just try and get some ideas about what you can do about these biases. Well, first of all, I think we need to acknowledge that there's luck involved in our business. This is something our business isn't very good at acknowledging. We have good and bad luck in our business. And Michael Mabusson absolutely nails this in his book, The Success Equation. He talks about there's a luck-skill continuum in any performance activity. So anything that you can think of that involves performance, there will be some skill and some luck, unless you're right at the end of the skill-luck continuum. So let's just look at what could be at the end. Something that's nearly pure skill, he says something like chess is pretty pure skill. You could argue 100 meters is pretty much pure skill. At the luck end of the continuum, the lottery or roulette. But I do think that we need as an industry to promote our skill levels more. Otherwise, the public will start to think we are too near the luck end. I think it's our ethical duty to do that and do a good job for our clients. Quite an interesting idea is this idea of Charles Ellis. He came up with it in 1975 about how to be a good long-term investor. And I would encourage you to read his book, The Loser's Game. He comes at it from a different angle, but it's very much a behavioural angle. He says the best investors he knew back in 75, and he wrote a book about it in 98, I think, aren't the ones who necessarily pick all the best stocks, pick the winners. They're the ones that avoid the losers better. Now, what does he mean by that? He means our industry is obsessed with trying to identify the next new Microsoft or Apple or wherever. Actually, in our portfolios, we should spend more time trying to make sure we haven't got any bad ones in there, because they're the ones that really kill our performance. And the managers that survive over the long term, and think about Warren Buffett's a good example. Right? He doesn't have many turkeys in his portfolio. Everyone focuses on the good stuff. But some of the better, should we say the best under-the-radar investors I've known in 30 years, just play the long game. In Ellis's words, they avoid the losers. They focus on the defences. They play their own game. They don't get swayed into doing what other people are doing. So trying to avoid their bandwagon bias, for example. And I particularly like his idea that for him the investment secret is the better investors minimise their mistakes. Humans are emotional. We have lots of emotions in us, and I think that one of the joys about behavioural finance is that actually, wherever you are in your lives, you can discover new stuff about yourself and other people. So technically, we get inputs from psychology, cognitive, sociology, history, stats, biology, but the real and best input to all of us about our behaviour and about our clients' behaviour comes from the real world. And that is why I think I can have some trivial examples, like the pickpocket example, or some of those illusions. Because I want to make a really serious point to you, ladies and gentlemen. Really serious. This stuff matters. If you know about how you think and make decisions, you will be a far better investor. You can really help your clients, really promote this idea of ethical investing, for example, because this is about the real world. And so with that, ladies and gentlemen, I will finish by saying a piece of advice I was given many, many years ago. Because we have extraordinary brains, if you don't know who you are, the stock market is an expensive place to find out. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to open the floor for questions. Ushers, could we please have the question cards? And as we do that, Paul, I have my own questions for you. So how much can we really expect to do to overcome our behavioral and cognitive biases as investment professionals?
My inspiration for this is one of my heroes, Charles Darwin, who used to do it for all his work. When he was doing all his work, he was constantly take a blank sheet of paper, literally put a line down the middle and say reasons why this is true, reasons why I might be wrong. And one of his most famous examples, and I'll make sure you can read it in a second, this is a page from his notebooks. And in the late 1830s, he genuinely had a big decision to make. He wanted to know whether he should marry his cousin Emma. And sure enough, we still have his notebooks from that day, and he did exactly this solution. He had a big decision to make. How could he get over his biases? His bias was he was crazy in love with her. But he knew there'd be ramifications if he married her. And so what he did was he took it, and again, you won't be able to read his notebook very clearly from here. It says, this is the question, should I marry her or not marry her? Reasons to marry her, reasons to not marry her. And I'll show you a couple. They're quite amusing. All I would say, ladies and gentlemen, it's a different time, a different place, so don't judge him by today's morality. So, for example, he says, reasons to marry, children please God, I'll have companionship, I'll have a home, I'll have charms of music, etc. Reasons not to marry, I won't have the freedom to go where I like, he says. He says, my choice of society will be limited. I like this one as well. He says, I may have anxiety and responsibility. Welcome to the real world, Charles. I'll have less money for books, and perhaps my wife won't like London, and I won't be able to go to clubs with gentlemen. Now, he ended up marrying her, being very a lovely marriage, 10 children. And I shared this to my wife, and I said, she said, I know why he did marry her in the end. I said, why is that, darling? He said, look at Darwin's last reason. It's better than a dog anyhow. Serious point. Serious point. What Darwin's doing here, right, is throwing in every reason you can think of. Stupid, funny, interesting, right, reasonable. If you have a big decision, and it's got to be big decisions only, Angela, just to be really clear, this is quite a good thing to do occasionally. Because what you're going to do is flush out ideas on the other side, even if they sound crazy, because you might find some wisdom in there. So this is probably the best way, in answer to your question, of how to mitigate, for example, confirmation bias.
Our next question is, why don't we accept that market participants, that's humans, are irrational, and hence incorporate this in our decision making?
Well, I think that's a really good point. I mean, why don't we? Because if you read all the classic economics textbooks, and again, I don't want to be rude about the traditional economists, but actually, the basis of most economic thinking is that human beings are maximizers, and they're logical. And they can be maximizers, in other words, they want the best, i.e. incentives always work, and they can be rational, because we can be rational. But what behavioural science says is they're not always like that. But the whole of economics thinking, or certainly most of it, is based upon these two ideas. That human beings are maximizers and we make rational, logical decisions. So I think the first thing we have to do is to go back and see what are we teaching our kids. Right? Now, I would point out that behavioural economics has become more integrated into mainstream economics in recent years. But even recently, if you look at the textbooks, there'll be this much traditional economics and then 4 or 5 pages of behavioural stuff. And I just think we need to get more awarenesses. Now, the good news is that since the global financial crisis, there's a lot more awareness of this. But I certainly dispute the idea that markets are efficient. I don't think we'd have bubbles if they were. The one thing I will say, though, and I think this is important to make, is we all do it, and it's been done a few times in the introduction. We talk about rational versus irrational. And I don't think the opposite of rational is irrational. Why do I say that? Well, 2 reasons. One is I think it's rational versus human. And I think the only rational people, for those of you who have a certain age might remember Star Trek, Spock would perhaps be rational, logical, analytical. And I think, is it fair to call these biases irrational? Because I want to go back to a point I made earlier. They've got your DNA successfully through 6 million years of human bodies to be sitting in this room today. So it can't be that irrational. It works. The point is that when you take it and put it in an artificial environment like a financial market, it can cause problems. So I try not to use the words irrational versus rational. I try and think about things like System 1 and System 2 thinking, or as you know, the elephant and the rider, which I think is the best metaphor.
Thank you very much, Paul. Another question. Can one generate sustainable returns by betting on market irrationality?
Yes, I think you can, but you have to have a set of rules. Now, again, I'm not going to try and tell anybody here how to invest, okay? And one of the questions I get most asked often is, okay, so what would a behavioural scientist or a behavioural economist or behavioural financier, how do they invest their money? And I have those friends of mine in the science who say you have to do it using quantitative techniques. You have to try and take out the emotion that way. So sort of the algorithmic type sort of investment. My only concern about that is that, of course, human beings design the algorithms. So never be confident that you've completely wiped out human emotion or human decision making. Other friends of mine say, oh, no, I want a deep value sort of approach. The idea being that markets get oversold, stocks get oversold, people hate stocks, they normally go too far, and that's where deep value people can start to get on. And both those, I know investors who are both behaviourists in both camps who do pretty well. Okay? Probably the most consistent form of behaviourally successful investor I know is, and again, mentioned before by one of my predecessors, those who have the luxury of time. Because most of the mistakes we make in investment, or lots of them certainly are, we panic out in the short term. We worry, we get nervous. We get caught up in today's emotion or today's news. And markets, of course, are very, very driven by sentiment in the short term. Actually, they do tend to follow fundamentals in the long term. So if you have a good long fundamental process, whatever it may be for you, and you have the luxury to see out that time frame, and maybe you don't, but let's hope you do, then that's the best way for me of avoiding some of the behavioural challenges that many investors succumb to.
Thank you, Paul. And a final question is, how have things such as relevant laws of financial markets, for example, information asymmetry, contributed to irrational behavior?
Flows, well, interestingly, if you look at something like, I'll take the foreign exchange market, because that's something I think where you see this most obviously. Anybody who studies flows in and out of foreign exchange markets in the short term pretty much knows it's speculative. This is not about real long-term businesses hedging their currencies or buying currency for future long-term investment. It's pretty sentiment-driven. It's driven by traders. In the medium term, fundamentals start to matter a bit more, so people could look at things like interest rate differentials, inflation differentials, etc. That tends to work. In the long term, again, valuations, purchasing power parity is a very good guide to how exchange rates will move over the very long term, but it's a lousy indicator in the short term. So when I talk about short-term flows, I think always of the foreign exchange market first and think about the reaction to the US election, right? Markets initially down massively, momentum, speculators bang, suddenly some people came in and said, this is ridiculous, and up it goes again. So I'm very nervous of people using short-term flows as a reason to do something. What is interesting is when you look at things like mutual fund flows over, say, a quarter or a 6-month period. Unfortunately, and again, what we have to do with positions of responsibility in our industry is make sure that people who invest in mutual funds don't fall for the I'm going to buy near the top and sell near the bottom. But the mutual fund flows across the world in a lot of asset classes tend to show that people buy the most of an asset class near the end and sell it near the bottom. So we have a duty, I think, to try and encourage and educate ourselves first and our clients, primus inter pares, second, to make sure we don't fall for these behavioural traps. So I watch flows very closely, but I don't let them affect, short-term flows affect my long-term decision-making. Or I try not to. I mean, again, remember, we're talking about the conscious brain versus the unconscious brain. If I see short-term flows going against me, I'm nervous, I'm worried, I want to fight or flight. My long-term brain, or my person, my rider would say, stop, this is just noise. There's a big difference between noise and signals. And we need as investors to try and differentiate between short-term noise and signals. And again, this unconscious mind is constantly trying to make sense of all the noise. Thank you.